number of informations from business, economic, and capital market sector. With me, Claranta Wijaya, and this is Market Headline. And yes, viewers, we are going to start market headlines by looking at the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement. So JCI opened at level of 5,173.98, and then approaching the closing time of the first session, the index was on the level of 5,123.32. And then the index was showing weakening trend by the second session's closing time. The index was closed at level of 5,143.89. And in short, JCI was weakening at 0.99%. And next we are going to see the sectoral movement. Leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got trade as the leader of the strengthening trend, going up 1.15%, and MISC industry that going up 0.57%. And as the leader of the weakening trend, we got infrastructure that going down 1.73%, and constructions going down 1.38%. And as the top gainers in today's trading, here's the list of the stock for you. We got UNTR with a value that went up 3.89%, and MDKA with a value that went up 1.49%. Astro International went up 0.98%, and Bebe KP with a value that went up 6.04%. Meantime, for the top losers for today's trading, we got TOWR with a value that went down 6.09%. We got BBCA with a value that went down 1.28%, and Telkom Indonesia with a value that went down 1.32%, and ICBP with a value that went down 1.45%. Next, we are going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. So rupiah opened at level of 14,647, and rupiah was also showing weakening trend towards US dollar. I was closed at level of 14,630. In summary, rupiah was strengthening at 0.55%. Financial Services Authority, or OJK, stated that there are 68 companies that are ready to gather funds through capital market. The value worth up to 40.54 trillion rupiah. The Financial Services Authority said the number of companies that will raise funds in the capital market by the end of this year is much greater than the companies on Indonesia's stock exchange pipeline. Based on the IDX pipeline, as of 4th August 2020, there are at least 15 potential issuers. Financial Services Authority say that there are 68 new issuers as candidates. In IDX pipeline, 15 companies that will be listed in the exchange came from manufacturers. For instance, trade, service, investment, property, real estate, and building construction.
Terdapat 68 emiten yang akan melakukan penawaran umum dengan total penawaran diperkirakan mencapai 40,54 triliun. Hal ini merupakan signal positif masih tingginya minat pelaku usaha menghimpun dana melalui pasar modal domestik.
Fitch downgraded rating of Alam Sutera to CCC-. The rating cut is in line with the increase in Alam Sutera's refinancing and liquidity risk.
Fitch downgraded rating of Alam Sutera to CCC-. Fitch report stated that Alam Sutera's long-term default rating cut from CCC- from the previous B-. In addition, Fitch also lowered the issuer's debt rating of $115 million maturing in 2021 and bonds worth $370 million with a tenor of 2022 from B- to CCC-. The rating downgrade is based on the high liquidity risk that looms over the company. The company's weak cash flow and the drop in pre-sales figures by 21% make it difficult for Alam Sutera to pay off its debts, where Fitch predicts Alam Sutera's pre-sales figure in 2020 will be in the range of 1.5 trillion rupiah. Meanwhile, Alam Sutera also announced that it would issue bonds worth $485 million to finance existing debt payments. However, Fitch estimates that this issuance will pose a very high risk. From all sources, IDX Channel.
Stay tuned on market headlines because we will be right back after this quick break.
Bagaimana outlook UMKM di 2020 ini, Pak Leona?
Saya ingin mengajak terutama anak muda bagaimana caranya supaya nantinya ini bisa berkooperasi dengan baik. Dan ini sudah dimulai.
Sebetulnya industri hilir itu lokal itu udah siap. Jadi pemerintah juga nggak perlu lagi menarik investor untuk industri hilir. Jadi pemerintah cukup menarik investor untuk industri bahan baku.
Adi akan ada proyek bikin hunian atau tempat tinggal?
Konsepnya adalah membawa kemudahan masyarakat sekitar Jakarta untuk bekerja di pusat kota. Total saat ini Adik Komputer Property mengembangkan 11 titik ya. Kalau Mas baru beli sekarang mungkin udah ke 3.000 sekian pembeli.
Kita bisa mulai merasakan fase 1 di tahun berapa?
Di tahun 2021.
Rangkuman sentimen yang berhasil dihimpun oleh tim redaksi kami, di mana 3 emiten asal Indonesia masuk ke dalam daftar 12 saham dengan tingkat keyakinan tinggi pilihan JP Morgan.
Journal of Medias menyatakan, potensi vaksinnya untuk menjaga COVID-19 menghasilkan respon kekebalan kuat pada semua 45 pasien dalam uji coba tahap awal pada manusia. Dari dalam negeri, Presiden Joko Widodo akan membubarkan 18 lembaga di bawah pemerintahannya.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. First quarter of 2020 left unpleasant results for smartphone sales in Indonesia. According to IDC research, smartphone shipping to Indonesia declined 24.1% quarterly.
In the first quarter of 2020, the volume of smartphone shipment in Indonesia only reached 7.5 million units in this period. This went down quite significantly since in the third quarter of 2019, smartphone shipments in Indonesia were recorded at 8.8 million units. In other words, it went down 24.1% quarterly. According to IDC, the number is the lowest record from the past 2 years. COVID-19 pandemic is the reason behind such downturn. It is predicted that until the third quarter of 2020, the sales of smartphones in Indonesia still contracted. However, some smartphone vendors are quite helped by local production facilities, thus the supply is still quite safe in the first 2 months of 2020. From all sources for IDX Channel.
We used to think that people in advanced economies are more likely to have smartphones rather than emerging economy, but not anymore. So many smartphones exist with a truly affordable prices. And there is even a nickname for a smartphone that is really cheap. People call it as ultra low-end smartphone. The nickname is quite straight to the point since those smartphones only worth under $100 US. And if we convert it to rupiah, it costs only around 1.5 million rupiah. With this super cheap price, it will attract more buyers in Indonesia. Let's assess it through the next graphic. Here it is. Through the next graphic, we can see Indonesians' appetite on the nickname of ultra low-end smartphone, and I would like to elaborate once again. Ultra low-end means smartphone with the price under $100 US. So it means if we convert it into rupiah, it would be around 1.4 million rupiah only. In 2015, let's say Indonesians' appetite on ultra low-end smartphone is in the 52.5% of the whole consumptions of smartphones. But however, the data showed that in 2018, the number went down to be 24.5% only of the whole smartphone consumption. Even in 2016, surveys showed that the largest smartphone market segment in Indonesia still exists in ultra low-end category. But then in 2018, it was only 24.5%. And by the latest data, in the third quarter of 2019, it was only 19%. And according to Associate Market Analyst for Client Devices at IDC New Zealand, not only in Indonesia, this happens worldwide. Consumers are willing to invest in a greater amount in their devices because they are becoming increasingly reliant upon them in their daily lives. See something good? Post it on Instagram. Have a good move, post it on TikTok. Have a thought, post it to Twitter. And this functionality needs technology that needs ultra-low-end smartphone cannot provide. So, as the ultra-low-end smartphones have decreased in demand, Indonesia's tech to beat low-end smartphones for the substitutions. And let's see the clearer view in the next graphic. So here it is, we can see the proportions of Indonesians' appetite on smartphone. So here it is, smartphone market in Indonesia. We can divide it into 4 proportions. First of all, ultra low end. That is quite 24.5%, which is under 100 US dollar only. And then moving on to low end smartphone that costs around 100 US dollar to 200 US dollar. And it occupied 41% of the consumptions. And then for the mid-range smartphones, which is costed for 200,000 and 200 US dollar to 400 US dollar, it is in the range of 29.9%. And the premium smartphone, which is above 400 US dollar, it is in the size of 5%. That was current statement from Indonesia IDC market analysts that assess that the increasing consumption growth in the mid-range smartphones is about to beat the low-end market in the country. It happened because the Chinese smartphone providers, these providers offer mid-range products but with a high quality than the low-end smartphones. And this market shift is also driven by changing of consumption patterns. Whereas people tend to need smartphones with higher specifications to support their lifestyles, such as mobile gaming and high multimedia consumptions. And there are several brands that are in the heart of Indonesians consumers. And what are those? Let's see through the next graphic. Here it is. We just compiled. The first rank goes to Vivo, and then the second rank goes to Oppo, and the third rank belongs to Samsung, which is previously Samsung has always been the first place. However, there are Xiaomi with the 4th rank. One interesting thing is that this is the first time that Vivo has dominated the smartphone market in Indonesia. Vivo's smartphone market share in Indonesia has now reached 27.4%. And this figure has increased compared to the same period in 2019, which only 15%. Spokespersons of Vivo stated that the key is a series of promotions and marketing for low-end and mid-range smartphones. And yes, Vivo gained profit, but how about other brands? Unfortunately, most of a smartphone company experienced sales a decrease since COVID-19 pandemic. Even Indonesia's smartphone demand in the first quarter of 2020 went down heavily. Let's check it through the next data. Here it is. We can see the slow demand of a smartphone in the first quarter of 2020 that happened in Indonesia. The total shipments, it's only 7.5 million units, and this number means it went down at 7.3% as if in a year-on-year basis. And if we talk about quarter-over-quarter, it went down 24.1%. But the sad thing is, Indonesia's smartphone market will continue to experience turbulence caused by various economic factors until the third quarter of 2020, at least before the market starts seeing a sign of stability again. But not only Indonesia, but global market also suffers. Consumers affected by a surge of unemployment rates and lower income are likely to delay unnecessary spending, which will lead into longer smartphone replacement cycle. And the next graphic, we will see the conditions of smartphone global demand in the first quarter. So here it is, we talk globally after we talk about Indonesians. Here it is, lower smartphone global demand. We can see these are like Samsung, went down 22% in the first quarter of 2020. And moving on to Huawei, from Chinese company, which went down 27% in the first quarter of 2020. That is a sign with the COVID-19 pandemic. And Apple Incorporated, that went down 13.7%. Xiaomi, that went down 9.3%, and also Oppo, that contracted heavily in the first quarter of 2020 by 19.1%. As a whole, first quarter of 2020 smartphone demand declined by 12% year-on-year, led by a 20% drop in China. Fitch Rating even stated that the global smartphone shipments in the second quarter of 2020 are likely to suffer a steeper decline on a year-on-year basis than the second quarter, as many retail shops were closed and the consumers stayed at home. However, Fitch expects that in the first half of 2020, smartphone shipments will recover as economic activities restart gradually and consumers return to the market. And we expect smartphone sales to bounce back again only in 2021 and supported by demand recovery and higher sales. Stay tuned to market headlines because we will be right back with more news coverage.
Bagaimana outlook UMKM di 2020 ini, Pak Leona?
Saya ingin mengajak terutama anak-anak muda bagaimana caranya supaya nantinya ini bisa berkooperasi dengan baik. Dan ini sudah dimulai.
Dukung terus Koperasi dan UMKM Indonesia. Saksikan terus IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business and Capital Market Channel.
Adi akan ada proyek bikin hunian atau tempat tinggal?
Konsepnya adalah membawa kemudahan masyarakat sekitar Jakarta untuk bekerja di pusat kota. Total saat ini IDX Komuter Property mengembangkan 11 titik ya. Kalau Mas baru beli sekarang mungkin udah ke 3.000 sekian pembeli.
Kita bisa mulai merasakan fase 1 di tahun berapa?
Di tahun 2021.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. Government through the Ministry of Cooperatives and SME will immediately distribute 28 trillion rupiah productive social assistance. This is to strengthen the working capital of micro and ultra micro business.
The role of MSME is considered very important as a driving force for the Indonesian economy. For this reason, based on the President's direction, the Cooperatives and SMEs Ministry will focus on providing stimulus for small entrepreneurs, including ultra micro, in the form of 2.4 million rupiah assistance for 12 million business actors. To support the plan, the government stated that it has budgeted 28 trillion rupiah. The government said that until now the data collection process is still being carried out, but the government hopes that this stimulus can be felt by MSMEs this August, including plans to provide other assistance. This is done so that MSMEs can survive amid COVID-19 pandemic, so that it is hoped that it can again boost the Indonesian economy.
Sudah disampaikan oleh Pak Presiden akan ada tambahan baru program-program pemulihan ekonomi nasional khusus untuk UMKM. Salah satunya tadi sudah saya sampaikan ke Pak Sultan, ada bantuan sosial produktif dalam bentuk modal hibah modal kerja sebesar 24 juta untuk 12 juta pelaku usaha mikro dan ultra mikro yang selama ini belum unbankable. Ya, jadi ini diharapkan bisa membantu dan akan terus dilakukan evaluasi.
Previously, the Ministry of Cooperatives and SMEs had also issued other policies for MSMEs by easing financing such as loan restructuring programs, interest subsidies, tax subsidies, and cheap financing. In the future, the Ministry of Cooperatives and SME will also boost government spending to buy MSME products, especially in the food sector. From Jakarta, Ade Firmansyah for IDX Channel.
Indonesia's SME associations warmly welcome the government's plan to provide productive social assistance for micro and ultra-micro businesses. The associations believe that the government's assistance will help the SME to continue business amidst the pandemic.
After the government announced that it would provide assistance for MSMEs in the ultra-micro sector, amounting 2.4 million rupiah for 12 million SME players, is warmly welcomed by the Indonesian SME Association or Akumindo. The General Chairman of Akumindo, Ihsan Ingratubun, said that although the number of MSMEs that received a stimulus of 12 million from the total 60 million was considered capable of having a big impact on the Indonesian economy.
Kami menyambut baik, dan dengan disasarnya 12 juta, jadi kami menyampaikan terima kasih dan apresiasi sebesar-besarnya kepada pemerintahan ini untuk membantu atau berpihak kepada UMKM dari sisi memberikan hibah 2,4 juta rupiah per usaha UMKM sebanyak 12 juta.
Previously, the government had budgeted 28 trillion rupiah to help MSME in the ultra-micro sector by 2.4 million rupiah to 12 million business actors. Although currently the data collection process carried out by the government is still ongoing, it is hoped that this program can help MSMEs to survive and running business in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. From Jakarta, Ade Firmansyah for IDX Channel.
On the other hand, Indonesia's SMEs associations assess that the restructuring program lies on Financial Services Authority Regulations number 11 of 2020 should be consistent. Associations finds that there are some obstacles that hampers the SMEs for getting the facility.
The policy stipulated under OJK regulations of 11 of 2020 is about restructuring requirements for debtors that are hit hard by COVID-19 outbreak. However, association finds that there are some obstacles that hampers SMEs for getting the facility, especially for businesses that want to get restructuring from non-bank financial institution. Saying that condition, Head of SMEs Associations, Ihsan Ingratubun, explained that these programs should be implemented consistently.
Tapi kalau yang swasta ini masih terdapat kendala-kendala yang sangat luar biasa, terutama dari sisi leasing misalnya. Kalau dari sisi leasing mereka tidak mau tahu, kalau nggak bayar ya sudah nggak mau bayar. Di mereka bekerja secara independen. Nah ini juga harus mendapatkan perhatian daripada pemerintah. Nah harapan kami terhadap restrukturisasi pembayaran kredit ini, dan memang sudah sampai kepada bulan Maret 2021, maka penerapan daripada restrukturisasi ini haruslah konsisten.
While based on OJK data, realizations of restructuring program has reached 784.36 trillion rupiah. Jakarta, Gilang Praditya for IDX Channel.
Minus economic growth invited unpleasant response from many parties, including Economic Observer. This was assessed to be uncertain policies and slow decisions making by government in handling COVID-19.
Economic Observer from IndiHome, Tauhid Ahmad, assessed that government decisions that are uncertain in the early days of the spread of coronavirus pandemic in Indonesia become a reason behind minus economic growth. One example of the worst policy, according to IndiHome, is related to homecoming, which was not allowed at the first place, but government insisted to allow it anyway. Government's blurred communications make society undisciplined. As there is widespread of COVID-19, economic consequences cannot be avoided.
Nah, masalahnya adalah keseriusan pemerintah mengatasi pandemi dari sisi kesehatan itu rendah. Kalau kita lihat pada awal katakanlah triwulan kedua ketika PSBB dicabut ya, itu katakanlah di bulan Juni, itu realisasi anggarannya 1,54%. Sampai kemarin di pertengahan ya Juli itu 7%. Nah, bagaimana kita bisa meyakinkan diri ketika pandemi semakin tinggi, realisasi anggarannya juga sangat terhambat sekali, jauh lebih rendah dibandingkan program-program lain.
The government should be able to handle the spread of COVID-19 with more efficient move, because if government didn't handle it wisely, it would cause heavy economic consequences later on. And yes, it happened assessing from the current minus economic growth. Jakarta, Muhammad Olga for IDX Channel. Here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the graphic close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic, business, and capital market channel. I'm Clara Antawijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.
Untuk informasi lebih lanjut tentang pasar modal syariah, silakan menghubungi nomor telepon 1500655 atau melalui email di konsumen@ojk.go.id.
Tunggu apa lagi?
Ayo berinvestasi di pasar modal syariah.
Berinvestasi yang amanah.
Halo, apa kabar Pak Eko?
Apa kabar?
Sehat?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Kabarnya?
Kabar baik, alhamdulillah. Senang banget bisa main-main ke salah satu gedung ikonik di Jakarta.
Terima kasih bisa mampir.
Terima kasih sudah diizinkan main-main. Pak Eko, ini saya ada beberapa hal yang ingin saya tanyakan.
Boleh.
Saya pengen pelajari soal RN ini, Pak.
Boleh. Boleh, yuk kita cari tempat yang lebih enak.
Baik, siap. Mari, Pak.
Yuk.
Pak Eko, ada sebuah tanggung jawab ataupun kepercayaan yang tentu saja disampaikan kepada Pak Eko ketika dimintakan untuk memimpin RNI oleh Menteri BUMN Erick Thohir gitu ya. Apa saja target ataupun mungkin kepercayaan tersebut dan bagaimana Pak Eko menerjemahkan itu?
Ya, jadi kalau target secara khusus sih nggak ada ya, tapi secara umum ya itu kita sebagai Dirut BUMN tentunya ada hal-hal tertentu yang memang kita harus jalankan dalam mengemban amanah. Sebagai BUMN itu sebagai agent of development, wakil pemerintah untuk bisa menjaga hubungan dengan stakeholder dan meningkatkan kesejahteraan masyarakat secara umum. Itu misi utamanya sebenarnya. Tapi tanpa melupakan tugas-tugas sebagai perusahaan, korporasi juga tentunya akan tetap dijaga governance-nya, tetap menghasilkan keuntungan yang secara proporsional, sehingga kontribusinya itu tidak hanya dari sisi dengan sosial masyarakat, tapi dari sisi finansialnya juga bisa menopang dividen yang disetorkan ke negara, tentunya bagian dari kinerja yang dituntut sebagai direksi di BUMN. Ini itu sih kira-kira.
Pak Eko, terkait dengan GCG, sebagaimana kita tahu, ada beberapa hal lah ya, yang tentu saja ini menerpa dalam tanda kutip banyak BUMN yang ada di Indonesia terkait dengan GCG. Bagaimana ini menjadi sebuah hal yang akhirnya juga diprioritaskan di RNI nantinya?
Ya, sebagai BUMN tentunya tuntutan untuk menjaga good corporate governance itu lebih tinggi kalau kita di BUMN ya, khususnya dibandingkan swasta, karena BUMN ini kan pemilikannya jelas-jelas adalah milik pemerintah. Nah, itu sebagai acuan kita menjalankan